I just finished recording a full YouTube video. And as I have completed everything that I had written down in my notes that I wanted to remember to say, I go through the footage and I realize that no audio was recorded. And I was sharing a lot of tips in this video. And, sometimes things don't go to plan. And that is what I want to talk about in today's video, because I wasn't actually even upset about it. Absolutely, there were a few thoughts that started popping up being upset, but then I reminded myself of these things. I used these tools that we're going to be talking about today so that when something does not go according to plan in your life, hopefully these tools can be useful for you as well. And this was a little tiny obstacle that happened in my life today, but it is something that these tools that we're going to talk about, this thing that I do when these kinds of things happen, is something that I've used when big obstacles have come in my way or big things haven't happened in the way that I have wanted it to. I've of course allowed myself to be upset, but when I'm done being upset, I like to shift into feeling better and feeling safe and trust that everything that is happening for me. And this can also be really beautiful to use whenever something isn't happening. When we maybe have been working so hard for so long to make something work and it just isn't happening the way that we think it needs to happen. And we may actually get a little woo-woo in some instances today as well, because that has really helped me just feeling this trust that I'm safe and that things really are for me and that there always is a greater plan out there than in this very moment what my mind right now can even comprehend, be able to believe is possible in my life.
Hi, my name is Pernilla, and this is my Challenge Your Norm podcast. I'm absolutely obsessed with anything related to personal development, and well, to grow, we gotta challenge our norm. And so on this podcast, we chat about life and how we can challenge our normal way of living it to make it greater than we could have ever imagined. Just one little belief, habit, bold move, and perspective at a time.
When I was younger, I at one point did both cheerleading on a pretty high level as well as dancing on a pretty high level. I got to this point at one point where I kind of had to choose between the two because I was doing it at such a high level that it required so much time from each of the teams. And for me to really be fully available on each of the teams, I would have to choose whether I wanted to pursue cheerleading as my thing or dance as my thing. And it was such a challenging decision. And I remember just walking around for months not knowing what to do. And I knew that when the school year started, I had to make this decision. And I had finally come to the decision that I was going to choose cheerleading and not dance. And on my dance team, we had a main coach or dance teacher, and then we had like a secondary dance teacher. And because the main coach wasn't there on the day that I wanted to share that I was going to stop on that dance team for the following year, I told it to the secondary dance teacher. And she said, okay, I'll tell the other teacher as well, and, it'll all be okay. And so I'd set my mind to, now I'm going to be a cheerleader. And obviously I was in school at this time as well, so it would be like something to do in the afternoons after school. And I really had set my mind up to the fact that now I was going to be on this cheerleader team. It was, was it like the best cheerleading team in all of Denmark or something that I was going to continue progressing on. And then a few of my friends were still dancing on the dance team where I had said that I was not going to be there anymore. As the school year started and they were going to that dance training again, my main dance teacher would on that day announce who had been put on the Danish leading team in the dance school. And I did not think that I was going to be one of those people because, first of all, I was a little younger than them and I just hadn't thought that that was a possibility. But when the main teacher said out loud that I was the person who had been able to make this like really elite dance team, my friends who had heard that then told me that I had made that dance team. And suddenly I was in a different position. I was like, wait, now I'm confused again. Should I be a part of this cheerleading squad or should I then join the dance team? And eventually I then decided I feel like this big dance team opportunity would be so cool, also because it was like older kids from my school who were a part of that dance team, and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be crazy. And so I ended up going after this dance group instead of going after this cheerleading squad that I had originally planned to be a part of. And the reason I'm sharing this is because in that moment I thought cheerleading is the way I want to go. That is what I want to use all my afternoon time on doing. But the universe, God, whatever you believe in, energies, knew, no, dance is Pernella's path. So let us put her on this really elite dance group team so that she chooses dance. Because what that led to was that all of my high school years, I started really teaching like all these different other dance teams, and that led me to take a dance education in Copenhagen, which led me to LA to pursue dance, which led me to the career that I have today. And so back in the day, I thought cheerleading was my thing, but then the universe was like, no, you are supposed to do dancing. And you don't know at the time, but then the universe told me that was my path. I want to share a few other stories with you, and I promise you I'm going to get to the point. You're going to see why I'm sharing these little stories with you. The second one is that when I had moved to LA, where years later in my life, I'd moved to LA and I'd gotten a lot of like little dance jobs here. I was making a living off of dancing and modeling. But then at one point I got this opportunity to get this big dance job. They were looking for only 3 dancers, and I was all the way at the end. We were the top 5 left, and I thought I had gotten it, and I realized then that I hadn't, and that they only chose 1 girl out of us 5. And so I was devastated because I really thought I had gotten this job. I was even at the fittings and like all these stuff. And I was so upset that I hadn't gotten it, and I just didn't understand why in the world I hadn't gotten it, because I had worked so hard, tried so many things. I had never gotten a job that was at that high level as what this job was, and I was just so devastated, and I didn't understand why I didn't get that. But really what I found out later is that the universe was really, I'm going to call it the universe, but you put in whatever word makes the most sense to you, energy, God, whatever you believe in, was really just protecting me. Because what happened to the girl that got the job was that it ended up being a terrible experience for her. She first of all got fired after a month or 2, and the reason being that one of the girls in the group that was touring with them was the girlfriend of the artist. And the artist tried to hit on this new girl who had gotten the job in a very inappropriate way. And that, of course, first of all, was really uncomfortable for this dancer who was hired. But also because she denied the artist got really mad at her. And because the artist had hit on her, the artist's girlfriend started being really uncomfortable towards this girl. And so I think that the universe was protecting me from having to go through that experience, and, changing my whole life around so that I could go on this tour to then maybe be fired because I wouldn't have wanted to get involved in any type of nothing with the artist. And so now, today, I can see why I didn't get the job. But at the time, I was not able to see it. And I know you've had experiences like this in your life. And so while I'm telling these stories, I hope you remind yourself of these little things that you thought you wanted, but now in your life today, you can see why it was a blessing that you did not get that, because today you've been led towards something far greater than if you had gotten that thing or done that thing. Later down the line, a few years later, I think actually only maybe 1 year later, I get a really good job, which allows me to travel a lot. I make the biggest income that I have ever been able to make previously. Within the job, I also have a lot of freedom, so I can still work on all of the things that I want to work on. I didn't have a business at the time, but my brand. And as I get this job, COVID happens. And because of that, I wasn't able to continue doing this job because it was a lot of traveling. There's a long story behind it, but short said, I wasn't able to do it. And at the time, I was devastated again because I was like, oh my gosh, finally, after years of being broke and like really struggling financially and really just wanting to book a job that I So I have something so I don't have to fight for every single little day job here in LA. I was like, why is this happening again? Now I don't have this job. But what that really led to was that I had no other choice than to go all in on my business, which is everything that I do today. So building up all of my platforms and starting to create ebooks. That's when I started to develop the app that I have and all the things that I love to do today, which are far greater for me than if I had stuck to that job. And I wouldn't have been as determined to go all in on these other things in my life if I had not been so low, right? Like if we are all the way down, lowest of lows, that's when we are the most willing to go all in, to take as much action as possible on something else because we simply have no other choice. And so that's why I'm honestly always, I get low if things don't turn out, I get low, but I always get excited a bit as well because I know that, okay, well, now I'm ready to fight for whatever it is that I want to create in my life. It gives me a little bit of this thrill, this excitement to be alive because it's like, okay, well, I have no other choice, so I'm going to push myself now. I'm going to challenge myself on the absolute biggest, best level that I can. I have one last example, and then I promise you, I'll get to the point that we're all waiting for. But I'm already kind of making the point as I'm going along, sharing these little stories. But I feel like in all of my relationships, when I say all, I've had 3 serious relationships in my life that have been 2 years or longer. And in all of them, at some stage in that relationship, I've been thinking like, wow, I hope we last forever. Really deeply hoping that we last forever. That's because that is what I thought was the best for me at the time. But now I can see, first of all, I'm crazy grateful for every single one of my relationships because they have made me who I am today, right? I would not have been who I am today without all of the lessons that I was taught during those relationships. But the beauty of life is that we think we want one thing at one stage of our life, but as we grow, as we get older, as we challenge our norm, we realize that what we once wanted wasn't the best thing for us. I'm sure you have probably been in a relationship where at one point you thought that this was your forever, or at least maybe you were hoping for it, or maybe once you had a crush on someone and you were like, oh my gosh, I hope we become a thing. And then now you can see that you're glad that that didn't happen. This leads me to the point, the thing that really, really helps me whenever something doesn't go according to plan, like today's YouTube video where the audio wasn't recording. Because maybe the reason the audio wasn't recording was because I needed to make this podcast episode and you needed to hear this message today. And so for the greater good, it was better for me to make that YouTube video on another day, in another way maybe. Maybe it wasn't the best video that I could create. There's a very big chance that that's the case. Or maybe I was meant to do something different this week for my YouTube video. Or maybe it was just the fact that this message I had to be reminded of, I had to remind you of. Maybe you right now are in a stage where you're worried and confused as to why something isn't happening, or you're just annoyed that this thing didn't work out or isn't working out the way that you wanted it to, and you have to right now either move, meditate, or journal, or just reflect on all of the times in your life where something didn't go the way that you wanted it to. But now, today, you can see why that was the best thing that could have happened. I also think we won't, in every single situation, be able to maybe understand why something didn't happen. But I do think that even though we can't maybe see it yet, or maybe we'll never see it, whatever it was that happened was for the greater good. It was because we had to learn a lesson, or something had to just happen in a different way, or we had to affect someone in some way through going through that. The biggest self-development people say that our biggest struggles, our biggest pains in life are connected with our purpose, and as we overcome it, we can help others do the same. And so if it's something really deep that you're going through right now, the lessons that you're learning on this journey as you're overcoming these challenges that feel so incredibly hard. Help you become so strong and so knowledgeable and wise and powerful that one day you'll be able to help someone else through whatever it is that you're going through right now. And I think that's pretty beautiful. And we won't be able to help someone go through something if it isn't something that we have gone through ourselves. That's why I really believe that to be a good psychologist or life coach or any type of human helper out there, it's like we can't truly help someone unless we've gone through it ourselves or guide someone else through something, or maybe even fully understand it unless we've overcome it and gone through it ourselves. So my challenge for you today on this Challenge Your Norm podcast is to challenge yourself to trust that there is a reason for every little thing that doesn't go your way, big or small, and that when you catch yourself being devastated over something that isn't going your way, allow yourself to, first of all. You're totally allowed to feel those emotions. Not just allowed, you should feel those emotions. But at some point when you are ready and you don't want to feel miserable or like a victim anymore, that you remind yourself of all of the times in your life you've gone through these hardships and how incredibly strong they've made you and why it was important and necessary for you to go through that. When I do that in my life, I just so feel deeply within that I can trust that this thing also is for me and not happening to me. It's so easy for us all to be upset and annoyed and angry at these things. But if we learn to know and trust that it really is for us, it really is, life just gets so much better. It really, really does. And it's hard. No matter how healed you are, it can be a challenge. But I just think, like with anything, the more we challenge our norm in that way, the better we get at it. I appreciate you so much for listening. It means the world to me if you would just take 5 seconds to write a review and give me 5 stars if you're willing. My podcast is free and I still don't have advertisers on here, so that's really the best way that you can help. And if you feel that it's valuable to you, if you would share it with a friend, that would just mean the world to me as well. I appreciate you so much. And remember, as always, in order for you to grow, you have to challenge your norm.